Imagine you're standing in the middle of a vast, empty forest, one that feels like it stretches forever. The trees are tall and unmoving, and the air is so still it feels like the world has paused. You're shouting their name desperately, your voice breaking with every call, but there's no response, none. The only sound that echoes back is the haunting voice of rejection, ignorance, and betrayal. It's suffocating. You're not just calling out for them, you're crying out for validation, for recognition, for something, anything, that says you matter to them. But all you hear is silence. Maybe you're trying to attract someone new, or maybe it's someone who once held your world in their hands and crushed it without a second thought. You've done all the work, haven't you? The chasing, the pleading, the overgiving, hoping it would change the outcome. You poured everything you had into making them see your worth, but it only pushed them further away. And now, after everything, you've arrived at this deafening phase, silence. You've decided to go silent on them, not because you want to, but because it feels like your last card to play. But here's the truth that's eating at you. You're terrified. Terrified that silence might backfire. Terrified that instead of missing you, they'll forget you. That instead of wondering where you went, they'll move on without a second glance. You're caught in this agonizing limbo, haunted by the question, will silence make them come back, or will it push them further away? That fear, it's real, and it's paralyzing. Silence isn't just a quiet decision. It's a battlefield. Every second of not reaching out feels like an eternity. Every day that passes without their name lighting up your phone feels like confirmation of your worst fears. You wonder if you've made a mistake, if your silence is just giving them the freedom to let go completely. It's a mental torture chamber, isn't it? And yet, deep down, you're clinging to the hope that this silence might be the one thing that turns the tables. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to tear into the psychology of silence, what it means, why it works, and why it doesn't. We're going to talk about real-life stories of people who faced this exact fear and what happened when they embraced silence. This isn't about sugarcoating or false promises. This is about understanding the power and the cost of going silent. Because silence, when done right, isn't just about making them notice you. It's about reclaiming your power and forcing them to confront the emptiness your absence creates. Stay with me. This isn't just a video. It's a revelation. By the end of this, you'll see silence for what it truly is. Not a gamble, but a weapon. A weapon that, when wielded with wisdom and strength, changes everything. If this hit you, if even a part of you felt seen, understood, or called out, don't let this message stop here. Think about how many nights you've stayed up, how many times you've scrolled through social media searching for answers, for closure, for hope. You're not alone in this. Someone out there needs to hear what you just heard. Someone needs this truth as badly as you did. There's someone out there scrolling in silence, feeling the same weight, the same questions, the same pain you've carried. And when you engage with this video by hitting like and subscribing, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping them. You're making sure YouTube shows this message to more people in deep pain, searching for answers just like you were. Be the reason someone else finds their strength. Hit that like button, subscribe. Let's make sure no one feels lost in their silence again. Let's make this a movement. One like, one subscription, one person at a time, helping each other rise from the ashes. Because you're not just surviving anymore, you're taking control. Let's do this together. Hit like, subscribe, and let's music rise. So now, let us look at the question deeply. And yes, for some of you, This will hit hard, so stay strong. The fear you're feeling right now, that gnawing doubt about whether silence will work, is exactly why you must stand firm. They've already made their choice, whether to ignore you or reject you outright. This silence isn't a quick fix. It's not a shortcut to instant results. It's a transformation. And let's be brutally honest here. Those other options you're clinging to, begging, chasing, or worse, reducing yourself to their emotional puppet, are pure poison. Poison for your self-worth, poison for your dignity, and poison for the future you're trying to build. Think about it. When you beg or chase, what are you really saying? You're handing over your power, saying, "My entire existence hinges on you. Without you, I'm nothing." How unattractive is that? It's like trying to light a candle with gasoline. Instead of creating warmth, it burns you down to nothing. If begging and chasing were the answer, wouldn't you already have what you're chasing? But you don't. Those actions only show them the weakest, most desperate version of you, and they will never respect that. So what are your other options? Silence. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Silence is your freedom. It's not about manipulating them. It's about breaking free from their grip. It's the ultimate statement of strength, a declaration that says, "I refuse to let your actions dictate my worth." And whether they come back or not is irrelevant. What matters is that you've stopped drinking the poison of desperation. Silence is not weakness. Silence is your rebirth. And my friends, I want to see you living with this energy, owning your strength and refusing to let fear control you. Whatever the results may be, whether they come back, stay gone, or move on, you will stand strong. Your silence is not about them. It's about you reclaiming your power, your worth, and your peace. So let me know in the comments. Drop a quick affirmation in the comments. I stand strong. And declare it to yourself and to the world. Because in this journey, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. And now we're going to dive deep into this question using human psychology. Trust me, this is going to be one of the most eye-opening videos you've ever watched. Stay strong and stay with me till the end, because I love talking to you, the powerful, resilient version of you, not the ghost of who they left behind. So let's break it all down and uncover what psychology has to say about the incredible power of silence. Let's get into it. So will they come back after you give them silence? What human psychology, and let me go a step further, what dark psychology says about this is simple. In most cases, they will. They have to. And you might be asking yourself, why? Why would they return when they made it clear they didn't care? This is where it gets interesting. Not everyone is supposed to come back, but there are 7 distinct cases where they do. Each one is rooted in human psychology, with a hint of dark psychology driving their return. Are you ready to explore these cases? Because once you understand what's truly happening beneath the surface, you'll see how silence works in ways you never expected. Let's dive into the first one. Number 1, the avoidant awakens. Oh, the avoidants, the ones who think they're untouchable, emotionally self-sufficient, and above the vulnerabilities of connection. If you've ever loved an avoidant, my heart goes out to you. Because, my friend, it's one of the saddest battles to fight. Not because you're not worthy, but because they're incapable of valuing you the way you deserve. Let me be blunt. Avoidants don't come back because they suddenly realize they love you. No, they come back for the warmth you provided, the comfort, the security, the effort you poured into them. They come back not for you, but for what you gave them. and that's what makes this situation so painfully tragic. Here's what an avoidant really is: someone running from their own emotions, their own fears, and their own need for connection. They build walls so high you exhaust yourself trying to climb them, only to find another barrier on the other side. As Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You can't control their emotional distance. You can't fix what they refuse to face. And no matter how hard you try, no amount of love or effort will penetrate the fortress they've built around their heart. Let that sink in. Do you know what an avoidant thinks when you go silent? At first, they feel relief. They think, "Finally, I don't have to deal with this pressure." They convince themselves they're fine without you, that they're better off alone. But then, as time stretches on, something unexpected happens. Your absence starts to weigh on them. Not because they miss you in the way you might hope, but because they miss the comfort of your presence. They miss the way you made them feel cared for, without demanding anything in return. And here's the kicker. Avoidants often come back, not because they're ready to change, but because they crave that warmth again. It's selfish, isn't it? But that's the reality. Let me tell you a story from an online forum I came across. A woman shared how she loved an avoidant for 3 years. She poured everything into him: patience, understanding, endless second chances. When she finally went silent, he came back 6 months later. At first, she thought he'd changed, that he'd finally realized her worth. But soon, his old patterns returned: emotional distance, avoidance of conflict, and a complete inability to meet her halfway. She described it perfectly. "He didn't come back for me. He came back because I was his safe space, not because he wanted to be mine." That's the tragedy of loving an avoidant. You sacrifice pieces of yourself, and they only take more. So let me ask you, is that what you want? To burn yourself alive just to keep them warm? Your silence is not about waiting for them to return. It's about using the distance to see the truth. They're not capable of giving you the love you deserve. And that's okay, because this silence isn't just about them. It's about you. It's your golden ticket to transformation, to rebuild yourself in a way that no one can take for granted ever again. Now I know what you're thinking, but what if they do realize my worth? What if they come back ready to change? Here's the truth. True transformation in an avoidant doesn't come from your silence alone. It comes from their willingness to confront their own fears and insecurities. Most avoidants don't even recognize their patterns, let alone take steps to change them. And do you really want to gamble your peace and self-worth on the slim chance they might finally get it? As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your reaction here isn't to wait, it's to grow. This silence isn't a punishment for them, it's liberation for you. It's your chance to stop pouring into someone who doesn't even realize they're empty and start pouring into yourself. Redirect that energy. Take that emotional effort and channel it into becoming the person you were always meant to be. Build a life so full, so vibrant, that their absence feels like a blessing instead of a loss. And hey, this was just one case. I know it might have hit hard. Maybe it even broke your heart a little to hear this truth. But listen to me carefully. Not everyone is an avoidant. That's why there are 6 more cases. Not every story ends like this. So don't lose hope. Stay with me, because what's coming next might just be the piece you need to hear. But for now, I want you to focus on this. Silence is not weakness. It is strength. It's not about manipulating them. It's about reclaiming yourself. Write this in the comments. I choose myself first. Say it, believe it, and let it guide you. Your silence isn't a waiting game, it's a transformation, and you're worth every moment of it. Number 2, the sensation seeker. Oh, another one. This time it's not the avoidant, but someone who is almost just as exhausting, the sensation seeker. This person isn't running away from emotions like the avoidant. They're chasing something, always chasing. But what they're chasing isn't love, stability, or connection. No, they're chasing excitement, thrills, and the rush of the new. And here's the brutal truth. For a sensation seeker, it's never about you. It's about the high they get from the chase, the novelty, the challenge. They live for the thrill of the game, and the second the game feels too easy, they're gone. This is the person who thrives on mixed signals. One day, they're all over you, whispering sweet words and making you feel like you're the only person in the world. The next day, cold, distant, like you barely exist. They're not pulling away because they're unsure of their feelings. They're pulling away because they need to feel the thrill of you chasing after them. It's a pattern, a twisted cycle of hot and cold. And let me tell you, it's exhausting. As Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who cannot put his thoughts on ice should not enter into the heat of dispute." Sensation seekers cannot sit still long enough to reflect, to connect deeply, or to value what they have. They crave heat, excitement, and the adrenaline rush of knowing they've captured someone's attention. But here's where it gets interesting. When you go silent, when you stop reacting to their hot and cold games, they're thrown completely off balance. Your silence disrupts their cycle. It denies them the fuel they need to keep playing the game. You see, a sensation seeker expects you to chase. They thrive on it. But when you go silent, they're left staring at an empty stage, wondering why the spotlight has shifted away from them. And here's the kicker. Your silence becomes the new challenge. It's a void they can't stand. The same person who pulled away because they thought you were too predictable suddenly becomes desperate to figure out why you're not reacting. Their curiosity eats away at them because sensation seekers need attention to validate their existence. Let me tell you a story. A man on an online forum shared how he'd been a sensation seeker his whole life. He admitted to thriving on the chase, getting bored once things became stable. But one day, a woman he'd been stringing along went silent. No texts, no calls, no cryptic social media posts, nothing. He said it drove him insane. "I couldn't stop thinking about her," he wrote. "Why wasn't she trying to win me back? I thought I was the one in control, but her silence made me realize I wasn't." Here's the twist. When he finally reached out, she was done. She'd used the silence to move on, to rebuild herself, and he was left chasing a ghost of someone he no longer deserved. And that woman? That's you. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not assuming. If you're a guy, let's swap her out for a man with standards so high he's already out there living his best life. Either way, the point stands. Silence can turn the tables, no matter who you are. And whether you're him, her, or they, you've got the power to leave the chaser spinning while you stride forward with confidence. So, this is what silence does to a sensation seeker. It flips the script. It makes them the one left wondering, waiting, chasing. But let me be very clear. This isn't about manipulating them back into your life. It's about removing yourself from their exhausting game and using that silence as fuel to rebuild yourself. You're not their source of adrenaline anymore. You're your own source of power now. I know what you might be thinking, but what if they come back? What if they suddenly want me because of my silence? Here's the reality. Even if they do come back, it's rarely because they've changed. It's because they're chasing the thrill of winning you again. And if you give in, the cycle starts all over. They'll lose interest the moment they feel secure again, and you'll be right back where you started, broken, confused, and exhausted. As Marcus Aurelius said, "It never ceases to amaze me when we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Your silence isn't about their opinion. It's about your self-respect. It's about refusing to be someone's temporary thrill. It's about stepping off the roller coaster and choosing stability over chaos. Sensation seekers don't deserve someone like you. They don't deserve the love, effort, and stability you bring because they don't know how to value it. So use this silence as your chance to step away, to rebuild, to become the kind of person who no longer tolerates these games. And when they come back, because they will, you'll have already outgrown them. So, my friend, stay strong. View your silence as your sanctuary, your shield, your golden ticket to peace. Write this in the comments. I choose stability over chaos. Say it, believe it, live it, and let them chase their own shadow while you thrive in the light of your own growth. Number 3, the throne taker. This one is a master at sitting comfortably in the seat of power, ruling over your emotions with little effort. They don't ask for much, do they? That's because they've never needed to. You handed them the throne without hesitation, catering to their whims, prioritizing their needs, and giving them the power to dictate the relationship dynamic. And what did they do? They took it all for granted. They assumed you'd always be there at their feet, ready to serve their ego. But let me ask you, how long are you going to keep bowing to someone who doesn't even notice your worth? Here's the harsh truth about throne takers. They only realize the value of their position when the kingdom crumbles. As long as you're there, bending over backward to please them, they'll sit back and bask in your devotion. But when you go silent, when you withdraw your attention and effort, the walls of their castle begin to shake. Suddenly, the power they've been enjoying feels less secure. And trust me, nothing unsettles a throne taker more than the idea of losing their control over you. As Seneca said, the greatest wealth is a poverty of desires. Throne takers thrive on the wealth of your attention, your energy, your love. They're addicted to being the center of your world, to knowing you'll drop everything for them. But the moment you go silent, you cut off their supply. You stop feeding their ego, and it leaves them in a state of confusion and fear. Who are they without your constant validation? Their kingdom becomes an empty shell without its most valuable asset. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a monarch who rules a vast, vibrant kingdom. They've grown so accustomed to their riches and loyal subjects that they don't even think about what sustains their power. Then, one day, their people quietly leave. No rebellion, no warning, just an exodus. The once thriving kingdom is now barren, and the monarch is left on their throne, staring out over empty lands. That's what happens to a throne taker when you go silent. They sit there, stunned, wondering where their power went. But let me be clear. Throne takers don't come back because they suddenly realize they love you. They come back because they fear losing the comfort of control. They miss the way you bent over backward to keep them happy. They miss being the center of your universe. And this is where you need to stand firm. Do not let their return fool you into thinking they've changed. Their regret isn't about you, it's about their lost power. Let me share a story. A woman on an online forum wrote about her experience with a throne taker. She gave everything to him, her time, her energy, her loyalty. He took it all without question, barely lifting a finger to reciprocate. When she finally went silent, he didn't notice at first. Weeks later, he reached out with a casual text, testing the waters. When she didn't respond, the texts became more frequent, more desperate. She said, "It wasn't because he missed me, it was because he missed the convenience of me." She stayed silent, focused on herself, and eventually realized she deserved more than to be someone's emotional servant. Now you might be thinking, but what if my silence makes them change? What if they come back, ready to appreciate me? Here's the thing. Throne takers rarely change unless they're forced to confront their own selfishness, and that confrontation doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, effort, and a genuine desire to grow, something most throne takers lack. Your silence is not about testing them. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about stepping off the pedestal they placed you on and building a life where you sit on the throne. This isn't about revenge or playing games. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't defined by someone who only values you when you're gone. As Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Your silence is your strength. It's your way of breaking free from their control and showing yourself that you don't need to be ruled by anyone else's approval. So, my friend, stay strong. Use this silence as a chance to rebuild your kingdom, a kingdom where you reign, not as a servant to someone else's ego, but as the ruler of your own life. Write this in the comments. I am my own throne. Say it, own it, live it, and let the throne taker sit in their empty castle while you thrive in the empire you've built for yourself. Number 4. The Lost Detector. Imagine a castle built on shaky ground. The ruler of this castle doesn't care about the foundation beneath them, because they assume the throne will always be there, steady and unshakable. That's how the throne taker operates. They sit there, comfortable, entitled, and utterly blind to the fact that the castle can crumble beneath them. And when it does, they're shocked. They don't see it coming because they never imagine the person holding them up could walk away. The throne taker is the kind of person who gets too comfortable. They take your love, your effort, and your patience as a given, like an endless supply they can tap into without giving back. And let me be blunt. They don't value it, not because it's not valuable, but because it's been handed to them without conditions. To them, you're not a partner. You're their emotional servant. They assume you'll always be there. And why wouldn't they? Up until now, you've done everything to keep their castle intact. As Marcus Aurelius said, reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears. Silence is how you reject the role they've placed you in. It's not about punishing them. It's about reclaiming your seat at the table of your own worth. Throne takers thrive on the belief that they control the dynamic. But when you go silent, you shatter that illusion. Suddenly, the foundation beneath their comfortable seat is gone, and they're left scrambling, wondering what happened. Here's the thing about throne takers. They rarely notice your value until it's gone. When you stop being their endless source of validation, when you stop holding their castle together, they feel the void. At first, they might not care. They might even dismiss it, thinking, "Oh, they'll come back, they always do." But as time passes and you remain silent, their comfort turns to discomfort. The silence becomes deafening, and they start to feel the cracks in their throne. Let me tell you a story. A woman on an online forum shared how she'd spent years bending over backward for a man who took her for granted. She cooked, cleaned, and supported him emotionally while he treated her like an afterthought. One day, she decided she'd had enough and went completely silent. No calls, no texts, no nothing. At first, he didn't even notice. Weeks passed, and suddenly he started reaching out. He called, left messages, even sent flowers. Why? Because her absence shook the very foundation of his comfortable world. But by the time he realized her value, she'd already moved on, building a life where she was the queen of her own castle. That woman could be you. Or, if you're a man listening, swap her out for a king who finally walked away from a throne taker who didn't deserve his loyalty. Either way, the principle is the same. Silence strips them of the power they thought they had over you. It forces them to see the cracks in their behavior and confront what they've lost. Now, I know what you're thinking. What if they don't notice? What if they never come back? Here's the hard truth. It doesn't matter. Throne takers only notice when their comfort is disrupted, but whether they come back or not isn't your concern. Your silence isn't about them, it's about you. It's about no longer being the foundation for someone who refused to build with you. It's about realizing that the throne they sat on was only as strong as the effort you put into it. As Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Use your silence as an opportunity to prepare yourself for a life where you're no longer someone's servant, but your own ruler. Build your own castle with walls so strong that no throne taker can ever make you feel small again. So stay silent, stay strong. Let the throne crumble beneath them while you rise higher than they ever thought you could. Write this in the comments. I build my own castle. Say it, believe it, and let them sit on their broken throne while you move on to a life where you are the ruler of your own worth. Number 5, the ego bruised. Imagine a mirror shattered into pieces, and each shard reflects a fragment of someone's ego. That's what you're dealing with when it comes to the ego bruised. This person's self-worth isn't rooted in their character, their values, or their achievements. It's tied to how much control they have over you. Their ego thrives on knowing they can sway you, command your attention, and keep you chasing after their approval. But the moment you go silent, that mirror cracks. And let me tell you, nothing terrifies an ego-driven person more than losing the reflection of their power. The ego bruised is the person who doesn't miss you. They miss the validation you provided, the way your energy inflated their sense of importance. Every text you sent, every effort you made was like fuel for their fragile self-image. They weren't interested in meeting your emotional needs. They were too busy feeding their own. And now, with your silence, their fuel tank is empty, and their fragile ego is left exposed. As Epictetus said, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The ego bruised doesn't see your worth when you're there because they've already convinced themselves they're the center of your universe. But when you go silent, you force them to confront a reality they're not ready for. They're not as important to you as they thought. Your silence isn't just quiet. It's a rejection of their control, a shattering of the mirror they've been admiring themselves in. Let me give you an example. I read a story online about a man who admitted to being driven by his ego in relationships. He thrived on being chased, loved the attention, but never reciprocated. One day, a woman he'd taken for granted went completely silent. No messages, no calls, no reactions to his bait. He wrote, "It drove me crazy. I couldn't understand why she stopped. I thought I had her wrapped around my finger." That silence bruised his ego so deeply that he started chasing her, trying to regain the validation he thought was his right. But by then, it was too late. She had moved on, and his ego was left in ruins. Here's the truth. Silence is kryptonite to the ego bruised. It strips away their illusion of control and leaves them grasping at nothing. But let me be clear. This isn't about revenge. It's not about punishing them. It's about freeing yourself from their manipulation and reclaiming your peace. Silence forces them to confront their own emptiness while giving you the space to rebuild your strength. Now, you might be wondering, what if they come back? What if their bruised ego makes them chase me? Here's the thing. If they do, it's not out of love or respect. It's out of desperation to restore their sense of power. And that's not the kind of energy you deserve in your life. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your silence is a declaration of that power. It says, I am no longer a reflection of your ego. I am my own person. So, let the ego bruised wrestle with their shattered mirror while you focus on building a life where you never have to dim your light for someone else's pride. Write this in the comments. I take back my power. Say it. Believe it. And let the ego bruised figure out their own reflection while you shine brighter than ever. Number 6. The hot and cold player picture. A seesaw, endlessly tipping back and forth, never finding balance. That's what it feels like dealing with the hot and cold player. One moment, they're pulling you in with affection, sweet words, and promises that make you feel like the center of their world. The next, they're ice cold and distant, leaving you questioning everything. This isn't love, it's a game. And they're the ones controlling the board. But here's the truth. The second you go silent, the game flips. The player becomes the played. Hot and cold players thrive on unpredictability. They give just enough attention to keep you hooked, then pull away to make you chase. It's a cycle designed to keep you off balance, to make you crave the warmth of their affection even more when it returns. But their attention isn't about love, it's about control. They want to know they can reel you back in whenever they choose. And when you stop responding, when you refuse to play along, you strip them of their power. Suddenly, the seesaw stops, and they're left hanging in the air, wondering where you went. As Seneca said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Hot and cold players use your imagination against you. When they pull away, you start overthinking. Did I do something wrong? Will they come back? Should I reach out? That spiral of self-doubt is exactly what they rely on to keep you chasing. But when you go silent, you refuse to feed their game. You let the silence be your answer, and it speaks louder than any words ever could. Let me tell you a story. A woman shared on a forum how she dated a classic hot and cold player. He'd disappear for days, only to come back with grand gestures that made her feel special again. But one day, after yet another disappearance, she decided to go silent. No texts, no calls, no waiting by the phone. At first, he didn't notice, but after a week, he started sending messages, asking what was wrong. By the second week, he was calling non-stop, desperate to regain her attention. She didn't answer. She wrote, "By the time he realized I wasn't playing his game anymore, I was already free from it." This is what silence does to the hot and cold player. It disrupts their rhythm, confuses their tactics, and forces them to confront the fact that their games no longer work on you. But let me be clear. If they come back, it's not always because they've changed. More often, it's because they're looking to reset the game. And you're not stepping back onto that seesaw. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your silence is your reaction. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's you saying, I refuse to let your inconsistency dictate my peace. Let the hot and cold player sit in their confusion while you walk away, grounded and unshaken. Write this in the comments. I refuse to play. Say it, own it, and leave the game behind for good. You deserve better than their back and forth. You deserve consistency, peace, and a love that doesn't need games to thrive.